I don't know if I'm recording or not. It's going to cover what happened during the famine in northeast Cork. I think I'm still recording. I'll go anyway. And that's what they're trying to do here. They're trying to tie the two situations in together. So there's confusion. They're trying to match one with the other. But they're two totally different situations. That was a deliberate starvation. This idea of radical hospitality is already being lived out in communities across Ireland. Listen to this. Take the story recounted of Irene Nunes, referenced in 100,000 Welcomes. Irene is a Brazilian immigrant to Ballyhaunis, County Mayo, who now serves as a sacristan in her local parish. Her experience reflects how parishes can become spaces of belonging where newcomers and established communities encounter each other in friendship and faith. Irene's story is one of many that shows how immigrants are not just passive recipients of help, but are active contributors to the renewal of Irish society. So Irene now is being brought into the equation, coming from Brazil, as an example for these churchgoers to read on this leaflet, making the connection that a Brazilian Christian migrant is exactly the same as what's coming up from sub-Sahara Africa or from the Middle East. You know and I know there's a world of difference. I have nothing personal against Irene, but she's at the church in Ballyhaunis. She's not living at the IPAS Centre from the Middle East. So again, they're muddying the waters. I must just do something. So again, they're muddying the waters, confusing people, and because people won't take a step back and actually think about what is being said to them and what story is being pushed, they will go for the fastest, quickest route to the end answer and say, oh, well, Irene is working out fine in Ballyhaunis, so maybe all the migrants are great. They will look for a quick solution to understand, to be seen to understand what is being said. So what's being said here is they're active contributors to the renewal of Irish society. Active contributors. Now, I don't see too many active contributors in IPAS centres. They're contributing all right, but not the way we want them. Well, we don't want them here anyway, but they're not active contributors. They're active takers. They're taking from Irish society. They're not contributing. And another word in there, renewal of Irish society. So a renewal, they're telling us there's going to be a new Ireland. The old Ireland is gone. The Ireland we all love. The memories we have from our childhood, being with our grandparents, being with our mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, kindly neighbours. This is a new Ireland that's being brought in, and they have it written down. However, true integration goes beyond mere welcome. Pope Francis often speaks of creating a culture of encounter, where tolerance gives way to mutual respect, understanding, and genuine relationship. Well, we definitely have a culture of encounter, and those encounters have not been good. I just watched a video today of a young lad being chased across a park or a playing field above in Dublin by a mob, and getting a ferocious beating. That's what I consider a culture of encounter. Or security guards harassing people inside in shops for merely looking at goods like everybody else does inside in shops. That's a culture of encounter. Or the situation in Northern Ireland where you have Romas raping 12 and 13-year-olds. That is a culture of encounter, as far as I'm concerned. So Francis wanted mutual respect. Now we all know mutual respect is earned. You know, you don't respect people unless they've shown to you they deserve to be respected. You don't automatically, you're kindly to them and you're polite, but you don't give respect unless it's due. Understanding and genuine relationship. So what they're telling people is, we want you to have relationships with these people. It won't be enough to integrate with them or for them to integrate with us, which they never will, of course, but our dealings with them. They want genuine relationships. Now, that genuine relationships could go further than just day-to-day niceties. Genuine relationship. That's also between male and female. That's where this is going here, because that's the end game here. The end game here is a mixing of the races. The Killarney plan. We all know about it now. Most people here listening to this will know about it. They want a mixed race. And the thing about mixed race is, when push comes to shove, the person of mixed race origin, most of the time, not all the time, will go to the culture that is not white. Will go to the culture that is not white. So they will revert to their settings. They will revert to their African and Middle Eastern origins. Breeding takes beating. This deeper connection, where migrants and locals enrich each other, is crucial for building a cohesive society. So, the church wants a deeper connection where migrants and locals enrich each other. So that would mean that we're cooking African dishes, or I don't know, we're doing halal on a goat out the back or something, where we can all share the goat together, and after they've done whatever they want to the goat, and you put the goat on a spit, and it's crucial for building a cohesive society. Well, there will be no cohesion. There will be no cohesion, because it's like mixing oil and water. Churches as places of gathering and spiritual nourishment can play a pivotal role in this process. Parishes that move from welcoming to fostering a sense of belonging, provide a model for what integration can look like in practice. So they really want us Irish to go out on a limb. We're to give them everything. We're to stand on our heads with these people. Like, to foster, my understanding of the word to foster, of the term to foster, is to take under your wing as if it was your own, a person as if they were your own. If you're fostering a child, you take them into your home and raise them as if they were one of your own. So this is what they want, a sense of belonging in Ireland. Provide a model for what integration can look like in practice. So this is Ireland now, church and state, thinking that they can do better than the likes of France and Germany and Sweden, because we're so super intelligent in Ireland. Only us could think of how this integration could possibly be done correctly. And the Swedes have mucked it up, the French have mucked it up, and the Germans and everything in between. But we have the secret formula. So that's what they're looking for, a sense of belonging, and provide a model for what integration can look like in practice. It is clear that immigration presents significant challenges. Strained housing and health service, along an education system struggling to meet the demands of a growing population, are real concerns. Well, you see, those things that I've just listed, um, housing, health, and education system struggling to meet the demands of a growing population, are real concerns. Because you see, this is an artificial population growth. It's not a natural growth where you can, the census will tell you, well, there was 50,000 Irish babies. I wish there was, but we'll say 40,000 Irish babies. It used to be 50,000 born. So we need a new school there, or we need housing there. But because this is population growth on steroids, they can't calculate for this because there isn't time. So all those things that I've just listed, in particular the health service as well, which is obviously under enormous strain. There are people waiting years now. This week we had news of a very young child waiting for an operation. I won't mention their name. For 7 years. And that child died for the lack of intervention. Because I can guarantee you there were services taken from that child and given to someone else, either coming in from Palestine. Not that I begrudge any child from services, but we really have to take care of our own children first. We really, charity begins at home. And services were taken from that little child and given to someone else. And if services weren't taken, funding most certainly was taken. So it's one or the other, and given elsewhere, where one of our own children actually died for the lack of medical intervention, which is absolutely scandalous. But it is equally clear that these problems existed before migration became a prominent issue. Well, yes, they were there, but not on the same extent that it is now. But you see, by writing it down, there will be people in the congregation that will say, well, I read it at the church, so therefore it has to be right. These problems are not because of migration. We always had problems, and that is true to a point. We always did have problems. There was never enough services, but not on this scale. But because it's written down, their takeaway from that will be, well, it's not the migrants that are causing the problems. Migrants are not the cause of these systemic problems, and they are often part of the solution. Now, isn't that something to think about? They are often part of the solution. Ireland's economy, currently described as being at full employment, which it's not, by the way, relies heavily on immigrant workers, many of whom are essential to sectors such as healthcare, hospitality, and technology. So, what they're equating there is that all migrants coming into the country will be part of our solution to our economic woes. And they work in the healthcare, hospitality, and technology. How did we manage before these people came in? We managed fine. I'm from the hospitality industry. I won't go into too much detail, but there was never any shortage with staff. Never, ever, ever. Irish staff, some of the very hardest working. Um, but they're here trying to tell us that the migrants are going to solve these problems, dismissing the fact that we have so many thousand leaving this country in colossal numbers where they cannot find work, and the only work that's available is low paid, unskilled labour. But the migrants are sucking that up in addition to holding on to their welfare payments and no tax. So we're really, really up against it here with regards employment. And this will touch every house because all the incentives are there for migrants to be hired over us. And that's not just for young people, that's for adults as well. So if you've got two people going for a job, the migrant will very likely be hired because the employer is incentivized to do so. That's not just for our students, that's for adults as well. These questions must force us to reflect, to look beyond the statistics and logistical issues, and instead focus on the human and Christian obligation. Now, once again, we have the word obligation coming up. Christian obligation. So it's your Christian obligation to accept this, or else you're not a Christian. And they're telling us focus on the human and Christian obligation to welcome and embrace the newcomer. So they can't even call them a migrant or an economic migrant or a refugee. It's just a newcomer because they are newcomers. But they won't say they're economic migrants. We're obliged. So again, the church is browbeating the Irish population. And I think it's really, really nasty. But I wouldn't expect anything less. As Ireland, north and south, continues to evolve into a more multicultural society, one that we didn't ask for, the values that have long defined us, openness, kindness, and a deep sense of justice, must not be abandoned. Instead, they are to be adapted and strengthened in the face of new challenges. So here we have this leaflet telling us that we're open, we're kind, and that we have a deep sense of justice. Well, we know where that sense of justice is at the moment with regards so many lefties ranting and raving for Palestine, but ignoring our own, not realizing that they will be swept away if Sharia gets a foothold in this country. The likes of them will be swept away. They'll be actually some of the first to go. But they think by supporting or being these justice warriors that that will insulate them, or they'll be given a special privilege. They won't be given any special privileges, just tall buildings. Openness, kindness, and a sense of justice must not be abandoned. Instead, they are to be adapted and strengthened. So once again, we're being told we have to adapt. We have to adapt. Not the newcomers, not the migrants. We have to adapt and strengthen in the face of new challenges. So once again, the Irish people are being called upon, and they're getting us through our feelings and our emotions and that lovely thing that's in the Irish, with a very kind heart. And we are a kind-hearted nation. We're a very soft nation, very gentle nation. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not a dangerous nation when we have to be, but essentially we are a very kind-hearted group of people. But that is being abused once more. By embracing the diversity that migration brings, so diversity is in there, diversity. Europe is already diverse. It was always. Europe was the most diverse continent in the world. All the different nationalities. Most beautiful continent in the world. With some of the most beautiful people in the world. And I've no problem saying that. Some of the most beautiful looking people in the world came from Europe. Intelligent, creative. We already had diversity in Europe. That's why we flew to other countries. That's why we paid through the nose for flights into different countries to see what these countries were like, because they were nothing like ours and Christian. By embracing the diversity that migration brings and by fostering a culture of encounter, we will get encounters. A culture of encounter. Encounter. Do you feel encountered? I do. We have the opportunity to not only uphold, but to expand our tradition of hospitality. So it's not enough to be hospitable, they want us to expand our tradition of hospitality. We have to do more. We have to do more. Yes, the call to welcome and integrate migrants is about each and every one of us living out the gospel of Jesus Christ in today's world. In a country that has abortion. In a country that kills 10,000 Irish babies every year. In a country that has homeless people freezing to death in the streets. Where's the Christianity there? In a country that gives houses to migrants over Irish young couples that can't start their families because they can't find accommodation to rent, let alone buy. So they want us to welcome and integrate migrants. And that is happening, I can tell you, in the sense that all these county councils are being given large budgets for drum classes, African drum classes, because that's all they're capable of doing, banging drums. They have nothing to bring to the table, zero. Let's all wrap up in, I don't know, Ukrainian cooking classes or something. Wouldn't be my kind of food, but the budgets are there. That I can tell you, and I know it for a fact. Integrate Migrants is about each and every one of us living out the gospel of Jesus Christ in today's world. As Ireland changes, so too must our understanding of what it means to extend a Céad Míle Fáilte. So by using the Céad Míle Fáilte, they're pulling at the heartstrings there again of our Irishness. So it's okay to be Irish when you're the one doing the giving, but it's not okay to be Irish when you're the one doing the complaining. It is a call to build a society where every person, no matter where they come from, can truly belong. So Ireland is a very small country. Africa is a continent. And what little we have, they want. Whatever we worked for, they want. Whatever our parents worked for, being charged 33% tax on the punt at the time, they're here for. They want that. So getting through the 80s and the 90s, getting through the last economic crash of 2008, where hundreds of thousands of people left the country or lost their jobs, and to try and keep their head above water, and people lost their homes. They had to return their cars. They were overstretched because they were sold a lie too. We were told that Ireland would have a soft landing, aka Bertie Ahern. So all those hardships, those economic hardships, the struggling, the scrimping, the scraping, the moving, the borrowing, the going without, and finally Ireland has reached what would be considered a relatively good standard of living. I say relatively. Just as after all those 800 years and more, just when we got there, they allowed the barbarians in to take what we worked so hard for. I hope I haven't kept you too long. I'm just going to give you a look at this. I wanted you to see it. I guess there's my little notes, right? I wanted you to see it, of what's being peddled in the churches, and it might clear it up for you of why we're coming up against so much hostility. Because you see, it's not only just the TV on the radio, it's the church as well as doing their part in this. And when you think about it, a lot of Middle Ireland now that have the mortgages paid off and the children have been to university and all the heavy lifting has been done, they're about to move into pension age if they're not already in it. And as long as it doesn't affect their pension or their house, they will be entirely selfish about this. All they care about is the value of their house. What is it worth? And they don't say the value of their home, they say their house. Big difference. So they're very easily bought off, but the government know this. And they're the bulk of who's going into the churches. So that brainwashing is directed at them and Middle Ireland. And until Middle Ireland feels the full effects, which of course they have yet to feel, because what's happening in the UK now at the moment is that people are being thrown out of their houses. One second. People are being thrown out of their houses. So we'll say we have Clwyd housing here, and there's another few housing bodies here as well. Private, rented, and Clwyd takes over the renting of that house, and that house then is rented out at a reduced rate. Well, the old age pensioners are being thrown out of their housing in Manchester at the moment, and I would imagine other places in the UK. People that are missing limbs that have served overseas in the defence forces. People with autism are being thrown out. People that are blind are being thrown out. Pregnant people are being thrown out. I read a piece the other day on Facebook where there was a girl in County Limerick, heavily pregnant, who had got her act together, cleaned herself up. She had been a drug addict, and she could not find accommodation for her and her soon to be born child. And all that could be found for her was a tent. Now, we didn't have a lot in the 1980s growing up. Things were diabolically bad. I mean, truly, it was unbelievable. Some of you will remember. I never remember hearing of a pregnant woman living in a tent. We actually didn't have much homelessness in Ireland then because there was always a spot for them provided. It was a rare time you saw a homeless person. And now was it 15,000 and more, the ones that are sleeping in their mother's couches or their spare bedrooms. So I better wrap it up. I hope this comes out okay. I probably made a few mistakes, but it's my first time, so you'll forgive me. And thank you for sticking with me. And it was to let you know of what's being said in the churches. And this won't be just Catholic churches in Ireland. This will be Church of Ireland as well. They're totally on board. So that abuse system that was there since the beginning of the Free State, we've all read the books about what happened in the industrial schools where children were covered from head to toe in lice and the boys were raped and murdered. That abuse system is still there, but it's more insidious. It's very well cloaked. It's covered. But they'll never get up at 5:30 in the morning and go to work. They'll never know what it is to drive on icy roads or to have not enough to pay the